A very good afternoon to all of you. My name is Shakti Sinha. I'm the director of the Atal Bihari Vajpayee Institute of Public Policy, of Policy Research and International Studies at the Maharaja Sayaji Rao University of Baroda, located in Vadodara. Many of you have been participating in our Friday webinars. We do this every Friday because our policy focus is both public policy, so therefore policy in all respects, and international studies. We do this alternatively. And it's quite picked up a lot on both in terms of IR and on economic governance particularly. We've looked at various aspects of public finance in Kashmir. We've looked at COVID recovery nationally and the international dimensions of it. And we are now picking up. Today's focus is a cross theme, I can say, because of course it is on connectivity with India's neighbors. So therefore developments in India's east and northeast. So this covers not just, it is a matter of economic governance also, because at the end of the day, regional integration, regional economic integration, connectivity, etc., really work to help domestic economies also. And here it has a massive foreign policy dimension to it. Now, CUTS has been working. CUTS is started off as an NGO on consumer matters. Now it has widened its focus. Has been working on this thing for a long time. And Vipul Chatterjee, our speaker today, has been leading the process. I've interacted with him over the years. And we thought that with this, I think people will be able to give us a flavor of what is happening, how things are changing. And I guess, I have no idea what is going to speak, but I guess we'll also talk about the challenges ahead and the opportunities ahead. So what we'll do is our usual thing. Our sessions last 1 hour, plus minus a few minutes. Bipul would speak initially for about 20-25 minutes, Bipul?
Yeah.
Okay,
yes,
and then I'll open it up for the Q&A. Maybe I'll ask a question or two. We have lots of people attending it. We've hit 58, 48 already. And we'll take up the Q&A and then we'll wrap it up by 5 o'clock. So let me not take more time. And all of you, please, those who have come to our invitations on WhatsApp, please email us so that we put you on a mailing list. We hope that you continue to join us, but obviously every time you will not join us because you have other commitments, but we hope that as much as possible, and also please suggest to us, give us ideas, comments, what should we be doing further? Because both policy research and IR, international studies are fields, very dear to Mr. Vajpayee, and sky is the limit as far as what we can be done. So I think we are very open. We've also launched our website now. Please visit our website. We've just launched our first publication, a paper on new education policy by Pitham Banerjee and Dipankar Sen-Gupta, and we'll be doing much more down the road. So welcome. We want you to be part of our community, and we want you to keep telling us, keep suggesting to us what can be done, cannot be done. With this, let me stop and request Mr. Vipul Chatterjee, Institute Director at CUTS, to take over. Vipul, over to you.
Thank you, sir.
What I'm going to do, Vipul, just give me 30 seconds. I'm going to mute all. Then Vipul, please unmute yourself, okay? Otherwise,
can you hear me, sir?
Yeah, loud and clear.
Good. So thank you, sir, for this introduction. Very effective introduction, I would say. And good afternoon, everybody. So it's an honor and pleasure to speak on a platform like this. I know Mr. Sinha for last few years, particularly about his various work, particularly when he was at the Nehru Memorial Museum and Library as its head. We have done a number of activities together. That's how we came to know. And it's the most important thing. He always encourages people to think out of the box, think loudly on issues which are both contemporary as well as futuristic. So thank you, sir, for giving me these opportunities, and I'm particularly grateful not just to you, but also I see that the audience today is fairly good. number one on a Friday evening, late afternoon evening. It's a fairly good number. And also I can see that there are a number of young faces. So the importance of the subject, I think there is interest among the younger people in our country. So today's topic is multimodal connectivity, its importance in eastern and northeastern region, its challenges, as Mr. Sinha has also already mentioned, and also its opportunities that we can see. So I'm going to divide my time and my speech, so as to say, into three parts. One is I'll begin with by giving some context, some historical context about the importance of connectivity. I mean, this is not just specific to that region, but I'm going to be more specific to that region. Then I'm going to speak a little bit on what has happened in the recent past, last few years, what is happening at the moment, and what is expected to happen in future. Now, intermittently, I'm going to switch in between the eastern and northeastern region and its neighbors, its neighborhood. And then finally, I will come to my conclude. So I'll give some concluding remarks about the future and what we expect, including what are the challenges, of course, but how do we see that future? Having said that, before I come to before I come to the
शेखर जी आपका माइक म्यूट कर दीजिए प्लीज.
substantive part of my speech, let me take this opportunity to first pay my tribute to our late Prime Minister Sri Atal Bihari Vajpayee. And I don't think it's a coincidence. I will not use that word, but connectivity is something which is hugely associated with his vision. He was not just our Prime Minister, but also a statesman, and his understanding about India is now getting reflected in many of our public policy discourse. So let me, as I said, let me pay my tribute to him as a visionary leader who understood the importance of connectivity for our current and future economic development in particular. And that takes me to my first point, the historical context. If we look at the history as well as economic geography of Eastern Indian states and Northeast India, it used to be a very prosperous region, by the way. I'm talking about few centuries ago. I'm talking about the Gupta period, for example, in Eastern India. I'm talking about the Ahom period in Assam, not today's Assam, earlier Assam, the larger Assam. It used to be a very prosperous region, by the way. And I will give you just one data. At the time of our independence in 1948, just after the independence, Mumbai, today's Mumbai, the then Bombay, was the most prosperous city in the country. And the second most prosperous city in the country was Shillong. And you have to keep this history in mind. Now, why it was so? That's because the economic production centers, they are well connected, not just with each other, but also with consumption sectors. So this connection between production centers and consumption sectors, be it railways, like what used to be known as the Bengal-Nagpur Railway, which is now Southeastern Railway, or Eastern Railway, even Northeastern Railway, even Assam Bengal Railway, which is present day Assam and present day Bangladesh. There used to be excellent railway connectivity in that whole region. Coming to roadways, we all know about the history of the Grand Trunk Road, GT Road, so as to say. There are many other big roads. I mean, by big, I mean the very important road connectivities in that region, historically. Then the most important means of connectivity was waterways. The region was so well connected with waterways that it can be comparable with the waterways connectivity, the two best waterway connectivity in the world. One is the Mississippi Basin, the other is the Danube Basin. And we all know how important the waterway connectivity in those basins for the economic development of those regions. Several regions within the United States, several countries particularly in Eastern Europe, as well as countries in the Western Europe. So the importance of waterways was very much there, and it is there historically. It was there historically. Much before the Brits came into our country, much before the Mughal period. I'm talking about ancient Indian history, ancient Indian economic history, to be very precise. So this importance of connectivity got disrupted, and huge disruption. First in 1947, 48, 49, 50, during that period, immediately after our independence, then after 1965, the war with Pakistan. Completely, I would say, disrupted. Then we waited for more than 3 decades to realize this importance of Golden Triangle, Quadrilateral project came into being in mid 1990s, and that revived connectivity, particularly road connectivity, to begin with in that region. So you have to keep that history in mind. And I'm not talking about rewriting history. What I'm talking about is to take lessons from the history. We keep on saying, and Mr. Sina and others were present here today, we keep on hearing, not just hearing, we keep on saying that this region is one of the least integrated regions of the world. Why? When I ask, give me some data, and the data comes. This is a cliche that our intra-regional trade, I'm talking about not just South Asia, I'm talking about just this India, Bangladesh, Bhutan, Nepal, this BBI, and our immediate neighborhood on the eastern side. Our intra-regional trade is just about 6-7% of our total trade. But that's a wrong data to quote, in my opinion. That's a wrong data to quote, in my opinion, because that doesn't give you the right picture. We have to look at the profile, economic profile and trade profile of all these countries to understand how much more that we can do. Whereas the right picture you can get if you look at the connectivity. We may not be, I won't say we are least integrated. I would say that we are less integrated because our connectivity got disrupted. So this is the historical importance of connectivity. Now, since mid-90s, late 90s, a lot of efforts are there. I'll first talk about a little bit about Eastern India. We have seen that if I understand or if I remember correctly, there has been a demand for a railway bridge over the river Kosi in Bihar since 1930s. And please correct me if I'm wrong. But it has just been inaugurated about a couple of years ago, or maybe a year back. Why it took so much time? If I may pose this question, why it took so much time for us to have this emphasis that you cannot do your trade, cannot do your economic activity. And by trade, here I mean not international trade. I'm talking about domestic trade, domestic exchange, unless you have good connectivity in place. Why have we not put our emphasis on on improvements of road connectivity, on developing new roads, developing bridges? So when you talk about multimodal connectivity, since over the last 25 odd years, 25 years, we have seen a lot of effort. There are many ways to define multimodal connectivity. And I'll focus on only two aspects of it, given the time constraint. One is to look at the state of various ways or connectivity means, whether it is roadways or railways or waterways or airways. If I compare it, what is happening today or what has happened over the last 25 years, as compared to what has happened in the, before that, in the previous period, there's a huge development. In Eastern Indian state, in West Bengal, in Odisha, in Bihar, in Jharkhand, huge amount of infrastructure development work is going on. Of course, the pace is different in different places. And I'd like to particularly emphasize on a new initiative, which has just been, not just been, I mean, it's about a year, which has been undertaken. Eastern Waterway Grid Project. This is going to be a game changer. And normally, I don't use the word game changer because it is too often used and for wrong purposes, almost more or less all the time. Yeah. It has become a bit of a cliche as well. But this Eastern Waterway Bridge project is not just about the river Ganga. There are a number of rivers which are part of this project. Brahmaputra is part of this project. Brahmani is part of this project. And the most important thing, this is not just about river connectivity. It is clearly mentioned in the project document that is going to emphasize on the linkages between river connectivity, river inland waterways, and coastal shipping. And if we look at the, again going back to history, if I look at the Kalinga period, Chola period, it was primarily because of coastal shipping that not only we witnessed economic prosperity in those places, in those regions of our country, but that economic prosperity helped us to develop our soft power. And that soft power is about social and cultural diplomacy. I'm very conscious about using the word diplomacy, that those kingdoms of ancient India used to do, even as far as many small island countries in the Pacific. And of course, East Asia, Southeast Asian countries. So this is the importance. Talking about Northeast India, huge development. I just got a message in my WhatsApp about a statement made by the Minister Mr. Reddy in Rajya Sabha today about the amount of development, infrastructure development work which is happening in Northeast India at the moment. Whether it is roadways, I used to visit those places 25, 30 years ago. I can easily compare what it was at that point of time and what it is today. I'm not at all saying that the glass is full. I'm saying, I'll never say that the glass is half empty. I'm saying the glass is half full. And there is a lot of things which are happening, which should happen. The last mile connectivity, for example. We have visited even remote places in states like Tripura, Meghalaya, Assam, even Arunachal Pradesh. And we have seen under the Pradhan Mantri Gram Sadak Yojana, huge amount of last mile connectivity work is going on. In Northeast India, when we talk about roadways, It's not just the central government supported schemes, it's also state PWDs, and most importantly, I would say, border roads organization. The exemplary work that this organization has been doing over the last several years. I mean, how we're going to describe is difficult. I mean, we should be grateful. The earlier thinking was that if we have good roads at the border, then enemies will come to us faster. Not that we can go there faster. So that thinking has changed completely over the last few years. Whether it is when it comes to waterways, huge infrastructure development activities is taking place in Brahmaputra. World Bank is implementing a project, Assam Waterways Project, with developing infrastructure on both sides of Brahmaputra for passenger movement as well as cargo movement. In Barak Valley, waterway projects are going on. Then, of course, you have to remember the plan that Indian Railways have taken to link all state capitals except Gangtok, to link all state capitals of Northeast India by railway lines by the year 2025. Just about a couple of months back, railway came to Manipur for the first time in its history. And it's going to go up right up to Moreh border. And this is linked with the Trans-Asian Railway Network, a project which is being implemented by the UNESCAP, United Nations Economic and Social Commission for Asia and the Pacific. Trans-Asian Highway Project, which is covering more or less the whole of Northeast and linking Northeast on the one hand with the mainland India, on the other hand with Myanmar and other Southeast Asian countries. Similarly, airways under the UDAN scheme, small airports, airstrips, either they are being revived or they are being developed all over Northeast and Eastern India. We have seen that in case of a few months back, Darbhanga Airport has just been inaugurated. There's many such smaller airports are coming up. So air connectivity is also getting improved in Eastern India and in Northeast India. Now the question, or not the question, but the issue is that how are we going to leverage all this in improving our connectivity with our neighborhood? And by neighborhood, I mean the three immediate neighbors in our eastern part of the country. Bangladesh, of course, most important. Then we have Bhutan as well as Nepal. I will come to Bhutan and Nepal slightly later. Let me first talk about Bangladesh. Historically, we have those linkages. The linkages, for example, between Chittagong Port and Dibrugarh in Upper Assam, the railway linkage. That used to be the most important railway line in the Assam Bengal Railway. So we have started reviving those things. Out of 6 railway links between India and Bangladesh, 5 of them have been revived. The latest being the Haldiwari-Chilahati route, which used to be a lifeline for North Bengal. And by North Bengal, I mean not just the West Bengal part of North Bengal, but northern Bangladesh also. That has been revived. Only one route, which is Chittagong-Dibrugarh, work is going on. Some more infrastructure development work is needed before we we relaunch that. Similarly, I would say huge amount of work is going on in Bangladesh. Bangladesh Railways has recently adopted a plan, national plan for 2041. Now, what we need to see is that how can we have better alignment between these plans, between these programs. Already the alignment is there in some respect, but there can be a better way. And only then, not only that we are going to have better connectivity, but also we can do more trade with each other. Similarly, for waterways, there are two very important waterways links, or rather three, sorry, between India and Bangladesh, other than the coastal shipping, of course. One is the Brahmaputra link through Dhubri. Inland waterway trade is already happening through that linkage. Second is in the Barak River through Meghna. We have already seen that efforts are being made to revive that waterway link. Third is, of course, the Ganga Padma link in West Bengal. We have just completed a study with the World Bank Group to see how feasible would it be to shift some commodities which are now being traded through roadways to waterways. We have studied two waterways, two possible ways. One is, of course, from Sahibganj right up to Rajshahi and Dhaka. And that can actually go up to Dhubri and Assam. And the other is from Kolkata to using coastal route to Mongla port, and from there to Dhaka up to Ashuganj port in northeastern Bangladesh. So those linkages are being revived. And I am very, very hopeful that within the next few years, those linkages will be working on the ground. Now coming to Bhutan and Nepal, and similarly, other than roadways and railways and waterways, the air connectivity with Bangladesh is also improving. Coming to Bhutan, Bhutan is already started using Dhubri port as a transit port for its trade with Bangladesh and the rest of the world. So goods from Bhutan are coming by trucks to Dhubri port, then transshipped into vessels and going right up to Dhaka, Narayanganj at the moment. And the discussion is on to have access for both Mongla port as well as for Chittagong port. Nepal. You see, we have very good waterway connections with Nepal, but there are challenges as well. So it would not be much of a difficulty for Nepalese goods, Nepalese trucks to use roadways to come to Sahibganj. And already there is a multimodal terminal there, and then take waterways. So this is one way of looking at multimodal connectivity. I'll come to my last point, will be the strategic significance of all these initiatives. This is one way of looking at multimodal connectivity. But the more important, I would say, usually by looking at different modes of connectivity, but maybe in silos, different, looking at them as various options. But more important way of looking at connectivity or multimodal connectivity, how can we have linkages between different modes of connectivity? And there comes the importance of multimodal logistic parks. We already have one in Sahibganj. One in Jogigopa in Assam is coming up. There's a possibility of a third one in Northeast India, somewhere in the Barak Valley, somewhere in Karimganj in Silchar area, near that place. Then there are also proposals to have multimodal logistic parks in in Ashuganj in Bangladesh, which is, I would say, which is not very far from Tripura border. Already there is a railway line between Akhaura and Agartala, connecting India with Bangladesh. Ashuganj is not very far from Akhaura. The road connectivity is there. So there is a talk about developing a multimodal logistic park there in Ashuganj. And also there is a talk to develop a multimodal logistic park, or what you call freight village, in Tribeni in West Bengal. Again, Tribeni is excellent. All three, roadways, railways, and waterways are there. So this is the second generation or next generation of multimodal connectivity that we have. Now, coming to the strategic importance, and very briefly, you know it very well. Everybody is aware that our connectivity with Northeast India is heavily dependent on the Siliguri corridor, which what is also known as chicken snake. Very narrow stretch of land connecting West Bengal with central West Bengal with northern West Bengal, also parts of eastern Bihar with northern West Bengal and northeast India. And it's not very far from Tibet border. I'm very deliberately using the word Tibet border. I have no hesitation in doing that. Therefore, security-wise, it is a bit vulnerable. So we have to go for alternate means. Coastal shipping is, of course, one. I'm going via Bangladesh. Once Padma Bridge is there, it's going to be much easier. But of course, it's going to take some more time. So we are looking at continuously, we are looking for alternate means. And that is the strategic importance of connectivity within our country as well as with our neighborhood. Not just with Bangladesh, but also with countries like Bhutan, countries like Nepal. And these initiatives, when you look at it, you look at them together, particularly through maps, then you will see that they're also, let me go back to one of my earlier points, linkages between production and consumption centers. So that thing is being revived through these new initiatives. And that is, I think, is the most important thing. What is going to happen then it will be useful in a sense, more useful in a sense that we'll be able to use this initiatives, this connectivity initiatives to develop value chains of various products, particularly agricultural products, fruits and vegetables, products like that. So that is the strategic importance. And my final point would be that not just these roads or railways or waterways or airways which are happening on the ground, but also the next stage has started happening, which is economic corridor development. A number of initiatives, Northeast Economic Corridor Development Project of the Asian Development Bank, for example. That is, all groundwork is done. That is now going to enter the implementation stage. Jamuna, which is Brahmaputra in Bangladesh, Jamuna Waterway Economic Corridor Development Project. Dhaka Sylhet Economic Corridor Development Project. East Coast India Economic Corridor Development Project. So all these projects are some of them are completed or under implementation, under completion. So what we need to do now is to see that how we can have linkages between these projects. And it's not very difficult. You have to be a bit imaginative, including digital linkages, digital connectivity. And that's where the future is. So I would end by saying that what it used to be, of course, there are challenges. I have traveled in interior Assam, many other states. Of course, there are challenges. A lot of things needed to be done on the ground for last mile connectivity in particular. But if I look at them, what it used to be in 25 years ago and what it is now, huge changes have taken place, huge improvements have taken place, and further improvements are on the cards. And that's because of the emphasis that now we are giving for the development of Eastern and Northeast India. And I'm absolutely confident that not only that this emphasis will be there, but there will be greater emphasis in the coming days. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Vipul. You brought in a lot of history also. We have lots of thoughts. I see very good people attending it also. I hope they'll ask questions. But on the chat box, there are two semi-angry points made from the Northeast. Professor Vijayalakshmi Brara from Manipur University says, roads are Northeast India, the stretch from Tejpur to Bombilla is pathetic. Nagaland highway is also terrible. Haflong is pathetic. That Northeast roads are not built, they're just painted. I'll not go into a point on tap water and drainage. So that's a point she makes. Manisha Sharma, also from Assam, makes the point about the PMGYS implementation. But Manisha, that is slightly outside this, so we are basically talking about interconnectivity, etc. But we have question from Bharat Joshi on when do you see the Kaladan multimodal corridor and trilateral highway seeing completion? So we can answer these first point of the roads being terrible, highways, including the national highways being terrible, and the second about because you can't talk about multimodal transport when on one side roads are not there, possibly not the other side either. And the second point is when you see the Kaladan multimodal corridor and trilateral highway see completion. Possibly trilateral will take much longer than Kaladan. So why don't you ask these people?
Yeah, Kaladan.
Those who want to raise, please raise your hands also, those who want to do so, I'll come back to you. Yeah, please, go ahead, please.
As you know, that Kaladan project is being implemented in phases. Yeah, a lot of work has already been completed in the Kaladan per se, but the connecting work, road connecting work in particular, that work is still going. And we are hoping that that they will be completed in this year. But as a result of COVID and various other developments, I think it's going to take some more time. But the importance of the Kaladan project, it will be more important for states like Mizoram or states like Manipur and also Tripura, other than some parts of Bangladesh. So Kaladan project, there is a school of thought that is going to be a substitute for Chittagong or other deep sea ports which are coming up in those areas. But I don't think that is correct. The importance of the Kaladan project is because of its multimodal nature. Okay. So it's not just about the port. It's also about roadways and railways. And again, it's a very strategically important location for our security point of view. And therefore, okay, that is very, very. Your second question was about this, of course.
State of highways. No, I know you don't work on that specifically.
Yeah, I know that. It's not as good as it should be. But at the same time, I would say that I would like to say that the glass is half full as against half full. I'm always an incorrigible optimist. So
wonderful.
I know that things are happening on the ground and things are going to happen, and we have seen them. I mean,
sir, I have a question if you don't mind.
Regis.
I'll come to you. Please raise your hands. I can't see who you are.
You see, my point is we can
raise your hand
and cribbing, not just criticizing. And there should be critique. I'm not at all saying that there shouldn't be any critique, but I don't think we should crib. Yeah, so that's a different thing.
Director Sinha, I recognize some people in the thing. particularly Dr. Ambuj Thakur, who was with Dibrugarh University and was looking at connectivity links of the Northeast with Burma. He is now with Chandrakamal Besbarua College. Now, if Dr. Ambuj Thakur is listening, I would like him to come in and make a comment or so, because he's worked on this particular area.
Especially on this, because many questions we have already listed. And
Yes,
many
yes,
hands also.
yes.
Pinku, I'll come to you. Ravide, I'll come to you. Yeah. And my internet is breaking down. So you mentioned some name, right? Dr. Ambuj Thakur. Please go ahead, Dr. Thakur.
A very good afternoon to everyone. Thank you, sir. And I would like to congratulate the speaker for his excellent presentation. Well, when we are talking about connectivity, of course, as of now, we cannot dissociate or disengage connectivity with our geopolitical situation. Right now, well, I would like to say that in 2019, I was a part of this, UGC-sponsored delegation. We undertook a road journey from Imphal to Yangon, and it was then that, and besides that, I have been to a number of places in the border areas of the Northeast and happened to see the state of the connectivity projects there. But of course, when we are talking about connecting Northeast India with the outside world under the ambit of the Axis policy, right now the only opening that we see is, the only ray of hope lies to Bangladesh, because BCIM, I've worked on the BCIM for a very long time. It's a non-starter now as things.
It's a non-starter. It's a non-starter.
As it stands today.
Not going to happen.
And
keep engaging ourselves with BCIM.
And whatever that we have with Myanmar, I think, given the current political situation in Myanmar, well, it's going to take a very long time. But when we're talking about connectivity within the Northeast, I think, well, speaking about Assam, I can say that the government of Assam and government of India, they've done quite a good job. Yes, a lot needs to be done, I accept. But, now I'm teaching in a rural college in Upper Assam. It's a totally rural area. I can see that places where there were no roads, even 5 years back, we have roads, totally made out of concrete blocks. Ambulances are easily accessible inside these rural areas, and the government subsidy schemes. Well, I'm not a spokesperson for any political party or for any government in particular.
It's all right.
I'm a researcher, sir.
Dr. Thakur, I think you made your point. We have lots of questions I want to address.
That's the point. No, Mr. Sinha, that's the point which I also wanted to make.
No, I agree. The glass is half full. It's a good point Dr. Thakur is making, that yes, it's obviously lots to be done, but things are happening. Is that what I get from Dr. Thakur, right? And there are issues in Myanmar that we have to accept that there will be problems. Exactly.
Well, internet connectivity, that's what I'm talking about, sir. That is what we need at the moment. And for the Brahmaputra, I think restarting the waterway project, it's going to be very difficult because of the huge siltation issue. Until we address that, and the dams problem in China, in the Yarlung Zangpo section, we cannot really go ahead. Thank you.
Vipul, it's all right. Vipul, I think there's so many questions.
Those technical issues are also being looked into. I mean, about navigational issues, including.
So I'm on that only. I have a lovely question from Mr. Captain Ravide, which talks very specifically on this point itself, that depths, currents, and security in our rivers, Natural Waterways 1, Natural Waterways 2, and in the Indo-Bangla Protocol route must be addressed. River training and appropriate berth facilities with correct turning circles for trucks must be developed. Hubs must be developed. Hubs are not yet developed. I think, Ravi, I'm sure people will agree with that. It has to be done, absolutely. But and you also know, Ravi, that the trouble with river training is that it causes siltation somewhere else. So you solve a problem at one point, you do land up creating problems elsewhere. So unlike European rivers, which are perennial, ours are not.
I would like to add to what you have said, sir.
Please.
Both IWAI, Inland Waterways Authority of India, and BIWK, Bangladesh Inland Waterways Transport Authority, they are working together. And this is a very good example to showcase. of two different government agencies from two different government agencies from two different countries, neighboring countries,
Okay.
working
Right.
together along with World Bank and the Asian Development Bank to look into all these issues.
Now,
In the-
before I ask Pradeep Purohit to ask a question, Chandrasekhar has a question that how do you see the project prospects of connectivity Southeast Asia, which you have partly mentioned, but the second part is a question I really like. Curious to know more on digital connectivity in the northeastern region.
Sorry? Can you repeat?
Digital connectivity.
Digital connectivity. Digital connectivity is, as you know, there is internet connection is still a very much of a challenge in Northeast. Now things are improving because of that cable line which has come from Chittagong, Tripura, and now that is the basis, that is the beginning, and now broadband connectivity is being expanded in Northeast region. So it's going to take some time. I'm looking at a horizon of at least 5-6 years to have good broadband connectivity in all over the Northeast. But the new technology has also arrived. By the way, it's slightly expensive at the moment, but over time this expense is going to come down. That is satellite broadband.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Good.
what I'm saying that I may sound a bit lunatic, if I may call myself, for the time being, but I'm taking you back to 1995 when first time the mobile technology came to India. Oh, it's no, but it's so expensive. People are not going to use it. People will not be unable to use it. Not everybody is. And internet. So over time, I mean, this satellite broadband is going to revolutionize the connectivity, digital connectivity in all over the world, not just in our country.
Okay.
And we have to start our preparation, our mental preparations from now.
Pradeep Purohit, could you go ahead with your question? Please unmute yourself. Go ahead with your question.
Yes, thank you, gentlemen, for spreading the positive developments about the multimodal transportation or connectivity situations of East and Northeast in particular. But I would like to throw some light on the ground realities that whatever big projects that we have taken up, the multimodal connectivity or any big development as far as these waterway connectivities that we are talking of have made any headways. Like the Indo-Bangladesh Protocol route, which was signed maybe 40 years ago, still, do we have much of a transportation taking place from Kolkata to Assam by this protocol route? No. Why in 40 years this could not be developed? Then we have as Mr. Vipul rightly said, Sahibganj multimodal.
Because we have forgotten about it.
Come up. But has we have any development after it being commissioned? How much of transportation or how much of material handling or how much of cargo movement has taken place from this Sahibganj? This thing.
Very small.
Similarly, as we talk of BBIN, BBIN got signed or principally agreed upon maybe a decade ago or even more, but the agreements could not be signed till now. And the pace on the developments are on a very snail speed or maybe zero speed, or maybe we are taking one step ahead and two steps backward. So why is this happening and what needs to be done? Who will be doing it? These are the three pertinent questions that we need to answer on today. And if we are ready, if we are really interested in answering these three pertinent questions as on date, then we will be having some future developments, whether we call it Kaladan project or we call any other multimodal project. These will fetch no new results. As we have received results of protocol route of Bangladesh or BBIN or Sahibganj, we will get results of similar results out of Kaladan or the other new projects that we are looking to be very optimistic about.
Good, I agree.
Bipul, I would request you to answer Mr. Purohit, and then we have many
Yeah.
questions in the chat box. Can I address them one by one to save time?
I agree with you that very little developments have taken place, even after having all these thoughts, all this. But why is it so? Because we have forgotten about it. Either we have forgotten about such things like the India-Bangladesh protocol routes, or we haven't given any push. You see, the agreement is there, but implementation of an agreement is a different problem. So you have to have different agencies working together for the implementation of it. So that push used to be very much missing. Now that push is coming back. And here comes the importance of the role of the state governments. I think that's very, very important. It's not just the role of the union government. Of course, the negotiation is the responsibility of the union government, but both union government will have to involve the state governments in such negotiations. And similarly, vice versa, state governments, they have to also make demands before the union government that, look, these are the things which are our lifeline, and they have to be revived, improved, expanded for better prosperity of our region. Unfortunately, I have no hesitation in saying this. For too many years, for too many decades, in fact, there is absolutely no emphasis for making our northeast and eastern region a prosperous region. So we have to make them a prosperous region for the peace, security, stability, and prosperity of this region. Connectivity is the most important pillar. So that is what I'm trying to underline again and again.
So Bipul, from Nisha
Yes, sir.
Saini downwards a number of questions. If you open the chat box, you
There
can
are too
quickly
many.
start taking them up one by one. You know, give them 1 minute answers. Give them 1 minute answers, but they deserve an answer. They've been paying it, so it'll be good to quickly. From Nisha Saini downwards, she talks about
Sir, in my whole
sustainability.
education life, I have not answered so many questions. So let me see.
Gopala, do it now. So do it today. It's a good beginning. Never too late to start.
Okay, let me see them. I think roads are terrible. Of
Nisha
course.
Saini wants to know sustainability of multimodal in the context of climate
Sustainability,
change.
yes. Yeah, this is what we have looked at. Yes. In our recent work with the World Bank, we looked at the feasibility of investment. And we have found that they are feasible. And how can they be made sustainable, not just feasible in a static sense? We have also looked at a long-term horizon over the next 20-25 years. And we have found that with little bit of investment, not too much of, little bit of investment, few $1 million, not billion, they can be made sustainable over a period of time. So let me see the other question. Yes, navigation is an issue.
Bharat Joshi wants to know, can we have private sector participation in regional connectivity projects?
Yes, very, very important point. You see, one of the reasons why regional cooperation is not successful in this region, in our part of the world, is because it's too much government driven. And historically, private sector has not taken much of interest in regional cooperation for several reasons. It's very difficult to do trade with Bangladesh, for example. The time and cost of doing trade with Bangladesh is much more than, for India, is much more than the time and cost of doing trade with Germany. And this is the data we have worked on. Yeah. Now, and there comes the importance of the BBI and motor vehicles agreement. Unfortunately, it's still on paper. I mean, the agreement has been signed. The protocols are yet to be signed. We hope that, well, Bhutan is not yet part of it. And I mean, COVID has changed the scenario in a significant manner. But we hope that is going to be implemented soon. But if Nepal is also not there, I mean, Nepal has some certain reservations. But if Nepal is not there, then my guess or my hunch is that Bangladesh and India, they are going to start implementing the agreement. And motor vehicles, roadways, and Bangladesh and India is also, they have the coastal shipping agreement, and they are now talking about a multimodal connectivity.
Can we ask Dr. Vijayalakshmi Brara to ask? She wants to add something to what I asked her question. Vijayalakshmi, would you like to say something? No, for the timing, I guess. Now, Pinku, your question, I'm giving it a pass between the border incident in Mizoram and Assam. I think that, yes, it is an issue, but it's not something which is, it happens once in a while, but things continue happening all the time.
What is that, sir?
The border incident between Assam and Mizoram, terrible things that happened. How do they affect connectivity issue? I think that's a very larger question. It's a very larger question. So I'm giving it a pass. Tanumay Kumar wants to know your topography, natural reasons. Are we looking into newer technologies for quality roads? A question which satisfies everybody in the Northeast.
You see,
Tanumay has a very good question.
this is a very important point. I mean, Northeast India is one among the 3 most important ecological hotspots of the world. The other is, I think one of them is Amazon, the other I'm forgetting for the time being. Anyway, so we have to be very, very careful in developing infrastructure in Northeast. And new technologies are being used to have sustainable infrastructure development, not just in Northeast India, but all over the world. And fortunately, now India is in a position to access those technologies in a much faster manner than what it used to, because of our better economic strength than what it was 30 years ago. So that's one point. Second point is, Northeast is not suitable for big industries. Big industries cannot happen. We have oil refinery, oil, those things are fine. But going forward, it's a combination of small industries, small scale units. That's what we need to develop. This is the cluster development approach, and this is exactly the point which has come out of the feasibility study of the Asian Development Bank on Northeast Economic Corridor Development Project. And it has to be product specific. Where is the market? Market is in your neighborhood and immediate neighborhood as well as extended neighborhood. And therefore, again, connectivity is very, very important, particularly in our connectivity with Bangladesh.
Now, Neeraj Manha's question, let me answer it. Neeraj, your very good question you have raised. China border areas developed a lot. We started changing our tactics about 20 years ago. But as we saw when the question is by Mr. Purohit and Vipul's answers, we take a little long time to react. But let me assure you, in the last few years, and I traveled a lot in the border areas, things have started changing a lot and pretty fast. If you want to see access beyond Bomdila to Tawang and up to Bumla, you go to other places, you can see the things are changing, are happening. So hopefully much better infrastructure in our border areas, not just roads, but electricity, water supply, schools, etc. Very important. Mahua, your question on BBI and MBA has been.
If I may add,
please.
To the previous one. You see, I'll give you an example. One of the finest products that I have tested is QUI, and that is produced in Arunachal Pradesh. But it's so difficult to transport them to other parts of Northeast and to mainland India. In fact, it is less costly to transport kiwi from New Zealand than from Arunachal to New Delhi, by the way.
Fine.
But kiwi wine is an excellent product. And now there is an agreement between Arunachal government, mediated through the Northeast Council and Indian Army, to use army trucks to transport those products. So this is being done on a pilot basis, and hopefully they will be expanded to other products.
Professor Shetty, this is Vijay Lakshmi. Can I just little short intervention?
Very short video, please.
Yes, this is commendable that how, various factual things are being talked, not just a generalized scenario. But then you also will agree that there is a lot of time and lot of water has gone into Look East policy and Act East policy, which unfortunately was not mentioned anywhere. And then there has been no accountability to those policies. And there has been series and seminars and huge expenditures on these issues. And as if it was a joke, as if, okay, let's leave it aside, let's start anew. So this whole attitude, towards Northeast. And anyway, what is Northeast with this Assam, Mizoram killing each other? I don't even see Northeast today. So, and secondly, and thirdly, this whole connectivity. I also did a project, it was published by Sage on this connectivity with Burma and with Arunachal and China, whatever, Tibet, what you say.
Mhm.
The whole thing is also we keep forgetting that we also are involving people in connectivity. It is not just roads. It is not just infrastructure. But what about people? But people we always see from the security point of view. Aise nahi chalega na. We have to see also the cultural, amalgamation, the cultural, islands, the cultural similarities, things. But primarily, I want to say that, absolutely no accountability to their actist and lookist policy. What do you have to say to that?
No, there are 3 points. Broadly, there are 3 points. I agree with 2 of them. The first one, that I won't say there is no accountability. I will say that it is our responsibility of civil society organizations and think tanks to make governments more accountable. And by governments, I mean both union government and state governments. I also agree with you that all these things have to be looked at in the context of people-to-people connectivity as well. And border huts is an excellent example. We have visited those places. People are happy on the ground, on both sides of the border. And that initiative is being expanded in various other parts of Northeast India. But I'm not agreeable with you. I don't agree with you on this second or the middle point that Northeast is not Northeast. I mean, we shouldn't say such things. That's my humble request.
But sir, that's of course a much larger issue, the point she raised. But they're trying to access Manipur, where she is, via Nagaland. There are issues which crop up again and again. So there are issues in treating Northeast as one undistributed whole. We must recognize individual characteristics and individual issues. I think that is a valid point. Of course, we're all India. We're all India. Agastya, your question, it's been talked about a lot, the chicken stay connect problem. Now with connectivity through Bangladesh happening and picking up, it's taking time, but it's picking up. And with thinking in Bangladesh, seeing itself as a recipient of raw material from the Northeast, processing it and selling it in Northeast in India, Bangladesh as the hub of Northeast India, that is changing. I was just eating a potato chip called Patata, made by this Bangladeshi company, available all over India. They set up a factory in India. I think hopefully things can change in those lines. Now, Anusha Jha's question is about regional imbalance in Northeast, secessionist movement. Secessionist movement, touchwood, has been coming down. Things are not the same. But if I've done some research on the 90s and now, I think secessionist movement can really has faded out quite a bit there. Multi-sectoral projects will tackle imbalances, but as we discussed, and you saw Professor Barara's very strong points, it's taking a long time. There's anger, and therefore these have to be stepped up. I'm purposely rushing through it because we're running out of time. Gayatri Rajpurohit says, recently G7 proposed Build Back Better initiative. Absolutely. At the G7 meeting, how far this initiative will help directly or indirectly India? That's a very, very good point, I think. How does India leverage onto the G7's Build Back Better? In other words, can you show an alternative to the BRI for countries to get involved? I think that is something which all of us, I think, agree with. Right, before, I think you would also agree that obviously we'll have to now make it into a viable thing rather than talking about it. The trouble with many of the initiatives is a lot of talk. There's lots and lots of talks and not enough. I think we have to move out to be moving on to there.
Yes, I agree with you. And I'll compare the data, 2014 data with 2019 data of India's development partnership initiatives in our neighborhood. I mean, data.
Thank you, Neeraj, for reading my book. Thank you, Neeraj, for reading my book. And I think we've had the basic thrust is to Bipul to wind up now. Unless you want to add something, don't add a few sentences before I wind up.
No. I mean, it's already Friday evening.
No, we are working people. We like to work. We like to study.
Friday evening,
the fact that
jaldi sukh jata.
Oh, to theek hai, but can you imagine at this stage we still have more than 85% of our audience? So I think it means that people understand that this is a serious issue.
Absolutely.
That though there may have been some changes, that though the pace of implementation has picked up, there's no doubt about it. And this is not a partisan statement. The pace of implementation has definitely picked up. Things we talked about for 20 years, now you can see them coming into it. But the fact is, it takes us so long on many of these issues because the inability to get different parts of the whole working together, not just the central government and the state government, but agencies within this government themselves, and that you have agencies outside the government also, outside government of India. In other words, the foreign governments involved. So there are capacity issues on all sides. Dr. Baral right to point out the people's issues which need to be addressed. So the complexities involved are quite a bit. We have in the past tied ourselves in knots, which is why it's sometimes difficult to untie these knots. But I think with constructive criticism, with greater pressure from civil society organizations, from think tanks like CUTS, from others also, of course, not just CUTS. CUTS has done very good work with others also. And we shall be hearing next month a discussion on the Sambandh project run by another think tank, which basically deals with a lot of connectivity issues in India and Nepal. Again, very serious issues, you know. So, I mean, we want, as a young upcoming think tank in Baroda, we want to bring these issues on the table, whatever little convening power we have, so that, you know, each of us working separately is not good enough. But I think working together and creating this kind of pressures by making the issues out, people understand, yes, something is being done, but lots more has to be done. So we can't start declaring victory too early. I think we have a long, long way to go, whether it's rail connectivity, road connectivity, water connectivity, the complexities involved, the environmental factors involved. You can't declare a river as a national waterway if the river is silted up, because we have built dams at the wrong places or not drained the river enough, etc. As an example. And then there are the software issues. The fact that documentation at borders is not easy. The fact that banking facilities, India to Myanmar transactions have to take place via 3 different banks in 3 different countries. A simple export-import invoicing. So, you know, these are real issues which we are facing, but you cannot rise to be great power if you are not in very comfortable relationship in terms of economics, in terms of social, and in terms of political connectivity with these countries. So let me thank Mr. Bipul Chatterjee, the Director CUTS, for his very detailed and specific presentation and for infusing a sense of hope that, yes, don't just see the glass which is not full. Look at the fact that the emptiness part of it, look at the fact that it's getting more and more full all the time. I think this is what we want. So thank you, ladies, gentlemen, very much.